What's up, investors? Chase here from the Note MBA podcast. On this week's show, we talk a little bit about the ball I dropped last week when I was talking about Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Chef. We want to talk a little bit about meta learning, about DIS, and about cafe. We talk about a tax issue happening up in Ohio. We talk about a deal happening down in Florida. We're just gonna hit the entire continental eventually. You know what I'm saying? We also talk about 2 different charities happening in and around the note space and with 2 just incredible note investors. I highly recommend you check those out. We'll have links down in the description. We'll have links over at the Note MBA podcast. We'll have links over on the Facebook page. Just links on links on links. Anyway, thank you so much for checking out this week's show. Have a listen right now.
I think it just happens. I mean, you don't know who's living in the house or who they're getting information from or what park bench attorney they drive past and call his, 877, I'll sue them,
First, seconds, performing, non-performing? What the f***? Note buyers, when it seems like you're in this business alone, know Chase, Robert, and the rest of their tribe are at it every week. They're bringing updates from their own note businesses as they work to find, fund, and finish deals. Follow along as they share their grassroots education with you, tuition free. If you'd like to know more about what they do and to download the entire back catalog, check out notemba.com. Now, here are your hosts, Chase Thompson and Robert Woods.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Note MBA podcast, your home for note investing on iTunes. I am Chase Thompson, joined as always by Robert Woods. Mr. Woods, what's going on?
I am looking in our inbox for Note MBA.
Okay.
I haven't looked into it for a while since you always do that.
the ask at Note MBA email address, a subtle plug there for anybody who has any questions or comments on the show. Be sure to send us an email over to ask@notemba.com. Very cool. Real quick question. You had a Facebook post that went pretty popular there over the past 48 hours or so, or 24 hours or whatever it's been or so, with a challenge that you have with a friend that's going on, which I think is super cool. How did that challenge coincide with the Super Bowl? When did this challenge actually start?
It was quite unique. It was a series of events. Actually, part of it was started. So my buddy Eric and I, that day we had actually not that day, Saturday, we'd gone to this bar just across the street from where we live. And we were hanging out, and one of my trainers from the gym was there with this big group, and he came and said hi. We were talking for a little bit. He's like, I got a competition next week. I'm not drinking. And he's like, I'm just struggling to not drink. Everybody else is doing it, but I've got the willpower. And I was like, well, good on you, man. It's going good. And the week before, actually on Wednesday, that same week, I'd gone to a local real estate meetup, and my buddy David had told me that he had just finished 30 days of not drinking. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Well, anyway, Sunday, Eric and I were hanging out at the house, and he had made a comment about stopping. And I was like, would you write it down? And I was just harassing him about his goals. And he's like, no. And I was like, well, one of my goals is to be, more in tune with, making sure it's appropriate levels of food and alcohol and in appropriate quantities. And he'd made a comment about a fat tax. And do you know what a fat tax is, Chase?
A fat tax. Is that like applying stakes to a bet or something? Like
no, so it's when you have a gym membership and you aren't going, but you still pay for it. He calls it a fat tax. Well, it got into this funny thing. Because I went on a tangent and I was like, you know what? I've already seen people drop off at the gym. And I was talking to my trainer about it this week too. And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, it's crazy. He's like, less than 15% of the people that have gym memberships that pay for them actually go. So a funny thing to interject now in the show is how many people are already slipping on those goals you wrote down. It's the second week of February. Are you already forgetting that you wrote that stuff down and you were going after it? But what had been happening, it was kind of funny. It was like, I just had the bachelor party the weekend before. I had the rehearsal dinner, my wedding, and then Sunday when we started talking about this, it was combined my birthday and the Super Bowl. So we just agreed to a little gentleman's bet of no drinking. And we said 30 days, but we made it 4 weeks. So I'm drinking again on March 6th because I've got a buddy's birthday I'm going to up in New York. So I'll be drinking 28 days later. But yeah, it was just, we figured, hey, why not? We can go do it. So last night we were hanging out, bottles of water in hand and cooked dinner and came back. And it's like, okay,
this is it.
No alcohol. So it's fine. It's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that anyone that drinks, I guess, regularly. My alcohol consumption has never been a problem by any means whatsoever. But to take extra 30 days and be healthy and focus on food, I'm pretty sure it's only going to be a good thing. So
yeah, I personally have not drank since like December 27th or something like that. Not again that was necessarily a goal per se. I was just like, meh, I don't know if I really need to do this. Unprompted at all by any sort of like, a ton of different circumstances kind of coming at me like you had there per se. But two things I want to address, or actually three things I want to address there. Number one, for anybody that didn't know, that nice slide in there by Mr. Woods. Happy birthday, Mr. Woods. I said it on Facebook. I sent you a text, but I just want to say it on the show. Happy birthday, Mr. Robert
Thank you,
Woods.
sir. Another candle on the cake.
I anticipate a lot of people who either have not followed us on Facebook, independently yet or what have you, or B, know you from outside the show or something, to get a bunch of emails saying happy birthday. So I'll be sure to make sure if you're not checking the email, just to forward all those along. But also, so that number one. Number two, if you are in a circumstance where you've already kind of, it's February 6th, 7th, you've kind of already forgot some of those goals you lined out, take a trip down memory lane all the way back to episode 104. We'll be sure to link it up in the show notes. It is now 104 kind of weeks, 104 episodes in. It has become like in our top 5 of all time. It was obviously a really great show. We got a lot of good feedback on it or what have you. So take a trip back there. And the last thing I want to mention, obviously, the ridiculousness that was the Super Bowl. Just an amazing game and all that kind of stuff. But one of the books that Robby and I have talked about numerous times on this show, called The Obstacle is the Way, is a book that the New England Patriots credit to helping them get their mind right for the Super Bowl of 2014, I believe. The last one they had, I think it was 2014. And they are continued advocates of ego is the enemy, obstacles the way, Ryan Holiday, that stoic mindset anyway. And if anybody follows the team or sports at all knows that is how they conduct their business. But we'll link up that book in the show notes. Definitely go check it out. To me, if a team like that can put together a formulaic strategy to keep their head right, to keep their mind right in what was essentially, again, for non-sports followers, the largest comeback in Super Bowl history, being down 28-3, and then to go to the first overtime ever in Super Bowl history, then to win after going to is just remarkable. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So pretty neat, pretty cool, and I love the fact that we've talked about that so many times, and that it has had such a large impact on them. So pretty neat, really good game. I had a good, anyway, just wanted to plug something that we have in common with the Super Bowl champion Patriots.
I love it.
Not that either one of us, I think, are running a 4.440 or anytime soon. So a few things I wanted to discuss today on today's show. We've obviously got some deals that we're potentially waiting on some proceeds to come in before we can bring them up on the show. Robby has a Florida deal we want to touch base on, some accounting, whatnot. I want to pick up the ball where I dropped it last episode, talking about the meta learning and what have you from the 4-Hour Chef and how that can be applied to the business. But one thing or two things I technically wanted to touch base on first, just to make sure they didn't get lost in the show. Number one, we're going to have a link in the show notes for a GoFundMe page for a fellow note investor. Her son has I don't even know all of the tangibles of it, but he has a kind of a genetic thing going on disease-wise or what have you. So a GoFundMe page was set up for them, and I absolutely would love anybody that knows her or is involved within, kind of the note investing community or family to go check that out, and just kind of, like I said, we'll have the link in the show notes or what have you, to go check that out. It would be a really, really amazing benefit to her, the family, the whole nine, if you got a chance to go check that out. And then number two, Mr. Woods, aren't you taking a trip to Haiti this month, or is it next month?
The end of the month.
The end of the month.
Haiti.
We have another Note family member that runs a pretty amazing charity that I'm sure we might or might not be talking about more in the future, depending on how impactful. I'm assuming it's going to be just unbelievable, the trip that you have coming up to Haiti. I don't know if you know a ton about it. We can obviously link up some stuff in the show notes for that as well. And we'll have more to kind of bring to the table after all of that is said and done. But I'm really pumped for that trip. I know the gentleman's name that runs it is Scott Dilly. I know him. I've met him numerous times. And just an incredible charity, an incredible opportunity that you have to be able to go out and really take the gifts and the opportunities that have been, that you've taken and been given it and what have you to you, and really have a massive impact on the lives of a lot of children and families out there. So really, really cool stuff. I just wanted to make sure, like I said, it didn't get kind of lost in the show, that we address kind of some really unique things, some charitable things that are happening within the note investing community.
I like it.
Yeah. So moving on from that, what's up with this deal in Florida? You said you had a deal that you could talk about. What's going on with it?
Well, yeah, we had this property that the borrowers had their Chapter 13, actually their Chapter 7 discharged. So no big deal for them. It's off their credit. And they quit claimed the property over to an entity that set up a trust to hold the property. And we were foreclosing on it. And for whatever reason, the judge allowed the new title holders who were put in place through quit claim after the complaint had been filed to become a party to the foreclosure case. And basically what that means is they were allowed to be active in the foreclosure case and bring up positive defenses. However, the judge's order allowing them entrance into the case had said that they weren't allowed to do anything to delay the case, which of course is exactly what they did because they were occupying the property. And it was just a ton of back and forth. I actually put a post up the other day. I'd been on the phone all day back and forth with my attorneys down in South Florida with Harris Howard of the Howard Law Group. And we ended up, we've got like 7,000 in legal bills on this foreclosure. So it was an expensive one. It was a lot of litigation and back and forth. And there was an error that happened on the clerical side within his office that opened us up to some potential nonsense. And there was also some things that had happened on the side of the defendants who had titled the property. And we had gone ahead and filed for sanctions saying, we're going to request that the court pays our legal bills because you guys aren't supposed to be doing this. And there was a lot of back and forth. Their attorney filed another motion. Our attorney filed in a motion, and it was just this day of just filings and nonsense. And finally, Harris called and was like, I'm just going to call and see if we can settle this. Let me call opposing counsel. And what we thought was going to be them saying, we want, $10,000 or $20,000 for cash for keys to quit this stuff. We ended up getting negotiated at $2,500, which still pains me to write that check because we do have $7,500 in legal bills, but they are giving possession along with that, and they accepted the earliest sale date. So we've got a sale date in the the second week of March. We'll get possession right afterwards, cut them a $2,500 check. And had we had to gone to court, there was potential that the decision at court, had we not had a settlement, would have been something that they could have appealed. I would have had to gone and hire an appellate court or an appellate attorney to go defend that. And we would have been holding on at least 3 to 4 more months. So for the $2,500 to settle this thing, I'm ecstatic about it, even though it pains me to write a check, which is basically kind of like, it's like a ransom. That's how cash for keys feels.
It's how it, from like the receiver's end. Is that what you mean? Or like,
well, no, they're asking for ransom. It's like I have to pay ransom for property that rightfully they don't have a legal claim to.
I see. Yeah. So, okay. I guess so. I have a question. We haven't talked a ton of deals recently. And before we hit record, we talked about some, how Ohio is currently just being kind of an ass whip of a state. Some of this stuff is just indicative of this type of business, right? You're just doing kind of some of this stuff. Does any of it have to do with kind of the processes that are getting put in place in the systems we've been talking about, that some of this stuff will be mitigated? Or is some of it just like, it is what it is, it just happens? It just, you mentioned it, kind of a tax issue that's happening over in Ohio. Is it just some of these things that just kind of like, ugh?
Yeah, I think it just happens. I mean, you don't know who's living in the house or who they're getting information from or what park bench attorney they drive past and call his, 877, I'll sue them, whatever.
I have never, oh my gosh, I've heard, like, I've seen them, but I've never actually heard anybody.
I think usually it's realtors and insurance, but whatever, park bench attorneys, we get the gist, is all I'm saying.
We work for you. 444.
Yeah, for $4.99, we can make sure you don't have to pay your $1,500 mortgage payment for at least another year.
My gosh.
I think some of it you just don't know. A lot of it has to do with processes. I actually had this conversation yesterday with an individual talking about, I was looking through the portfolio and we've had some amazing deals and made some great money. But I'll be honest, I don't know that I've been thinking as strategically as I could have been at some of the deals. Where, you said, you're like, oh, I like Ohio. And I've told you that I feel that I'm going to exit Ohio here in the next couple months. I'm looking at an email right now on a property I'm selling in Canton. Mm-hmm. That one that was managed by Hayes Property Management, which is not getting a referral from Next Gen Coastal Investments. If you missed last week's episode.
If you missed last week's episode and or the show notes, be sure to go check out how much we dislike Hayes.
On that, I need to say thank you to our listenership, though. I need to pull it up. I got a message from an agent up in Canton who said, hey, I'm happy. I'm here. I can help you. Like, that was the awesome proactive response I got.
Really? That's awesome.
Great. I'm selling the property, so it's indifferent.
Yeah.
In the sense of that. But if anybody needs a proactive realtor property manager in Canton, my LinkedIn box seems to have one. It's just, it's just interesting. A lot of those things we don't know. I've had a good handful of foreclosures go third party. And I just told you I was looking at this issue in Ohio in Franklin County where they deducted the taxes from my sale proceeds. And I've never had that happen. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that. But in the sense of you're talking about the nuances of the processes, or is it we just don't know? I think it's a mix of both. It's a little bit of a grab bag. I think if you're only going after vacant properties, you're going to have less time for less headaches in litigation, but you're also losing your opportunity to really reperform.
Get some cash flow going at a much quicker clip. And for sure.
It depends on what your strategy is. I think my strategy, has been evolving like anyone else's, and I'm seeing different things that are working better than others.
Yeah.
Another thing right now that's also like my reflection for this, past couple months has been through building out the systems with Salesforce, and as we're getting that developed a little bit better, it's giving me the opportunity to think more strategically about what have I been buying. Yesterday I was on the phone with a fund manager who runs $1 billion fund. And it was a good conversation for 45 minutes talking about what they've done, what they've seen, the cycles that they've been to. And, you're talking a 32-year career, he'd said, in this space. And looking at the analytics, what goes on behind the scenes. So a lot of it's processes, a lot of it's your systems. But I think at the end of the day, what I'm realizing, I'm looking at what he's got with $1 billion fund and what I've got, and a lot of it is just incremental growth and incremental improvements destined towards whatever your goal is. I don't have a goal running $1 billion fund that deals with notes right now. That does not sit on my goal list anyway.
That's not jiving with your current situation.
So my incremental strategies for improvement don't lead towards that. But, like Salesforce is an incremental improvement in the systems that I had, which leads towards the capacity of increasing our capacity of what I can manage through the system. Mm-hmm. So it's little things like that, I think, that you kind of catch on this deal. I don't know. It's interesting. Maybe if we had started trying to do an offer 2.5 months ago, it could have done the same thing. But, who goes? Maybe 2.5 months ago, they would have really been $20,000 is what they wanted. And we just never would have gotten here.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And then you mentioned something happened maybe in the office of the of an attorney that's been, generally speaking, pretty great. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, if everybody's doing their job, essentially, sometimes some of it's going to come down to luck. Most time going to come down to preparation, and it just is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually a ton of what it is.
So before we dive into the little bit that you can bring us from what has essentially been, from what I can tell, some really great meetings with your accountant, I did want to bring up, because I feel like it was a glancing blow at best of what I mentioned regarding the importance of just the first couple of pages, in my opinion, definitely the first chapter, kind of first section of the 4-Hour Chef before, and that was that process of meta learning. So he defines it in the book kind of on a one-page thing where he says this idea of meta learning is where you'll learn to mimic the world's fastest learners. It is possible to become world-class in just about anything in 6 months or less. Armed with the right framework, you can seemingly perform miracles, whether it's learning Spanish, swimming, or anything in between. And I feel like this is a really great place to look at, and a great way to kind of set the bar and the barometer for measuring how you're coming into, say, this business. If you're new to note investing, new to real estate investing, new to really anything, and if you apply the principles that he talks about in that first section of that book, before it really gets to any what is essentially the food portion of it, right? It's called the 4-Hour Chef. And he breaks it down into two different components. One is called DISS, DISSS. So that's triple S. And that acronym that stands for deconstruction, selection, sequencing, and stakes, which is why I was thinking that fat tax earlier was stakes, just because I've been reading this book and kind of getting into the understanding of that. But to him, this is like the recipe for learning any skill, anything, and it is completely encapsulated in this acronym. So deconstruction for him is where you take the minimal learning units, basically the Lego blocks of whatever the particular skill or activity you're trying to get better at. Where should I start? How should I, kind of deconstructing everything out, right? And then selection is the quintessential 80-20, right? Which 20% of those Lego blocks should I focus on for 80% or more of the outcome I want, right? And already at this point, you're starting to decide what that outcome looks like. What is the result of all of this, right? You think that's where it would start, right? So I want to learn how to swim, right? But what's the actual outcome? Are you just doing it from a fitness perspective, just to be able to do, a certain number of lengths or whatever the case is? And so now you can start through that selection process of figuring out what that 80-20 is going to be. The next S is sequencing. And this is, in what order should I learn these blocks? Like, should I be out? So if you're using something like a swimming analogy, I think the answer is technically yes, you should be in the water. But what if part of that selection process, one of those Lego blocks is learning, some sort of hip adjustment, some sort of hip flick thing that is capable of being accomplished outside of the water. And that would be that first learning block that you want to set down. And then the last thing is stakes. How do I set up stakes to create clear consequences and guarantee I follow the program? So for him, he recommends a ton of different stuff, everything from there's a great service that essentially you put money up against that if you don't accomplish it, the money goes to charity. You set up, stakes with Eric. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you guys are going to be working through this not drinking for 30 days, essentially, right? Having those stakes in place, that essentially built-in accountability situation is vital, right? And then the second kind of secondary principles that he brings up is something called, he calls it CAFE. He only has an A there because it makes it easier to kind of like visualize what you're looking at there. But these secondary principles are compression. Can I encapsulate the most important 20% into an easily graspable one-pager? So essentially, can I take that 20% and put it all down on a single document? So that way I have everything I need to be able to understand and execute against where I'm headed. And then F is frequency. How frequently should I practice? Can I cram before the test? Is it something I need to build up to? Are there growing pains I need to predict? These types of things. And something I love that he talks about multiple times in the book, and that is and he actually talks about it a lot in the 4-Hour Body, which is essentially what is the minimum effective dose for volume. So what is the minimum necessary effort, movement, let's say it's investing dollars, whatever the case is, what frequency do I need to be working at this to accomplish where I'm trying to go? And then encoding is E, it's that final. So CFE, how do I anchor the new material to what I already know for rapid recall? So for me, a lot of when I was coming into the note business, I had been in the mortgage space and essentially the real estate space, for 7-8 years at that point. So a lot of the acronyms, a lot of the things, I fully understood the retail side and I knew a little bit about the secondary side, but I was able to use the encoding piece in this particular case because I already had a pretty decent understanding of kind of a lot of these different things. What I didn't have was a ton of the quintessential real estate investing stuff. So that's where my main focus of learning kind of went, as opposed to necessarily needing to understand note investing or notes in general. I was on I got it. I'm done. I'm ready to move on down the road. So it's understanding that moving forward. So that DIS platform, and then of course, CAFE, that platform there, those two acronyms is what he uses time and again to move through very dense, very difficult kind of tasks and procedures. But again, you can do these same things moving forward, whether it's learning this business or something else. So that, to me, in using those two things and applying those two things towards, kind of the year and where I'm headed and all that kind of stuff is what I was referring to in last week's show. So definitely check that out. I'm sure there's going to be tons of blog posts and YouTube videos, or go pick up the book, obviously. And those are going to be the really kind of quintessential pieces that you're going to pull out of that book.
I like it.
Yeah, for sure.
4-Hour Chef.
The 4-Hour Chef. Yeah, he's at the beginning of the book, he's like, look, even if you don't give 2 inches about, 2 S's about cooking, that is not what this book is about. That is not what this is about. This is about those two principles, the concept of meta learning through the DIS kind of encapsulation of learning, and then to a secondary extent, that CAFE lesson. And he repeatedly throughout the book uses that cooking as the vehicle for understanding this, and you can absolutely plug any learning how to drum, learning how learning how to swim, language learning this business, learning the art of negotiation. Any sort of thing can be done through this lens. But that's essentially what you get out of that. So it's really, really neat, extremely cool way to kind of look at the world and actually accomplish the goals and accomplish the things that you're trying to get done that we talk about in episode 104 and whatever. So definitely go check that out. Last thing I want to talk about today, what's up with this accountant? You keep having really great meetings with him. Him.
No, man,
up,
it's just
man?
good. It's just one of those things where I realized I needed for me an in-person accountant that would be advising me on my business, other than somebody that can appropriately classify transactions and then fill out the taxes by numbers, which is kind of what I had going on.
Yeah, you were working with someone out of New York, correct?
Yeah, it was a big mom. It was a big no. It was a big company. I just wasn't happy with the service. I'd rather have a more boutique accounting firm. And I'm, I mean this with full respect, but it's like, I always tell people, like working with Harris, you're not going to get the best price. Don't ask for a discount, but you're going to get the service that comes commensurate with what you pay. And, the business being at what it is now, you kind of stop tripping over dollars to get to pennies. Mm-hmm. And I kind of just pick the dollars up and give them to the people who are making my life easier. And I think it's been gratifying to approach business that way. I think it makes the relationships much better. Think about it. At the end of the day, there's an appropriate time to negotiate and an appropriate time to pay the stated price.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the services that I'm very happy I'm making a big change. And it's been interesting, too, because I've been buying a little slower. I think last month I had a notepad. I was looking. Last month we did a little under $400,000 worth of acquisitions. And I want to be growing that number, but at the same time, I'm trying to be focused on what's going on behind the scenes and the time it's taking to get all of this stuff transferred over to make it a bit more intimate of a relationship, so he understands the nuances of the mortgages, plus the rehabs, plus the wholesale deals, plus there's money lending and all the stuff that's coming in and out of the different entities.
Yeah.
So it's been fun doing it. It's kind of cool building a better little team like that. And I'm also in the process of looking for an office. So that's what's been, I want to buy a building. So I'm looking at a couple right now. So that's been interesting. And having an accountant to run that by is, he's given some good input on some things to look out for and some things to keep in mind as I continue the search.
And before we round out this show, as a question I'm sure many of the listeners are having right now, because I'm having it, that has been not the Achilles heel per se, but everybody's really trying to solve that once they get into this business, once they really start to find success, find some kind of niche themselves out, and they're really starting to move along, is that accounting piece, without giving away, right, all of the things. In the future, there are going to be different types of stuff you can bring to the show that you might have learned, just as a educational piece.
$250 an hour, I'm happy to share with everybody.
That's all I needed to know, man. That's what. By the way,
it's like paying an attorney, brother. It's like paying an attorney.
We've had a lot of success with our Science of Getting Rich, with Robby reading the Science of Getting Rich series. We've got another one or two before the big kind of finale versions of those.
We should have 3. I believe there's 14 chapters.
Okay.
Right? We should have 3 weeks left.
What I was going to say is that this definitely, bleeds into the next series, though that series is going to have a paid component. I'm so sorry, everybody. We're going to have the $250 an hour component, but it'll be all good. No, I appreciate it, man. And if you guys have not already checked out that Science of Getting Rich series that Robby's doing, going through that, it is without a doubt a labor of love, though it's imprinting, I think, a lot of that, that mindset stuff and all of that onto, into Robby's subconscious to a level that he didn't anticipate at the beginning of it. Or maybe he did.
No, I knew exactly what I was doing.
It's been phenomenal. It is absolutely, as a person who loves Audible, who loves audiobooks and all that kind of stuff, it's fantastic. The serializedness of it, though, leaves me always kind of like, because I know there's more, right? So I love that, though. And if you have not already, be sure to go check that out. Those episodes, by the way, are not on the site. You can only find those over at iTunes. Also, be sure to check out that link that we've mentioned in past episodes for the event, the marketing extravaganza that I have going on in just 2 weeks. You can find out more information on that at bit.ly, that is bit.ly/marketing madness chase. So be sure to go check that out as well. You can pick up a ticket. You can come down to San Antonio, and I will absolutely, positively melt your face and rock your world with regards to getting some marketing happening in and around your business. And I guess that's a great way to kind of end the show if you don't have anything else for the people, Mr. Woods.
Nope. Have a good day. I'm a year older, hopefully a year and a few days wiser.
I love it. Thank you guys so much for checking out the show today. If you have not already, head over to iTunes, catch those Science of Getting Rich episodes. And of course, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment. All of that stuff helps us out tremendously. If you have not already, head over to notemba.com. We're going to list out everything that we've been talking about in this and every episode over there. So be sure to check that out over there. Jump on the NoteMBA Insider list as well. We send out a weekly email every single Monday. We include links to really great stuff that's happening in the industry and just other stuff that's kind of happening in and around our business. As well. And as always, be sure to tell 5 other people you know about the NoteMBA podcast. Catch you guys next week.
Take it easy, guys. Thanks for listening.